Hi, today I want to talk about how to go from problem suffering to problem solving. Most people that I meet in my practice, when they first come to me, they're in a situation of problem suffering, in that they are enveloped by the problem. Anxiety, panic, depression, stress, OCD, whatever it is, problems, psychological problems, have a quality whereby they capture your attention and then they make you a prisoner. And then you end up in a circle of just doing the same things over and over again, but not getting anywhere. So, we're in a problem-suffering kind of mode, and that can last for as long as it lasts until you do something different, because without something different happening, fundamentally nothing changes. So how do we move from problem suffering to problem solving? Well, if you think about anything that you've achieved in your life, any significant achievement, finishing a degree, going on a long cycle ride from Land's End to John O'Groats, climbing a mountain, learning to fly an airplane, I mean anything really. These are just things that I've pulled out of the top of my head. Doing any kind of course that requires some persistence, learning a skill such as drawing or painting or sculpture, pottery, anything that requires some grit, some determination, some progress through time. Anything that you have done that you consider to be achievement, consider this. You had to create the intention of doing it. You had to say, yeah, I'm going to commit myself to this amount of time. I'm definitely going to put the effort in. And when you commit to something like that, you create what I'm going to call a solid intention to achieve it. Now, not everyone achieves their outcomes. They set out on things but they don't achieve them, and that's possibly because their intention is not really solid enough. Now, when you achieve things in life, it's because your intention has carried you through the humps, through the obstacles, the difficult bits, the stuff that's hard to do. You don't know how to do it, and you kind of think, this is really difficult. But your intention carries you through, and your intention creates an emotional motivation to see it through the end. Now, what I found with things like anxiety and depression, etc., is that there's often a lack of intention to move to the end, to move to the problem solution. There's a dissatisfaction with being in problem suffering, but not really a strong intention to move to problem solving and therefore to solve the problem. And I think the reason for that is because I invariably would say this. First of all, nobody really seems to know why they're anxious. They experience anxiety, but they don't know why they're anxious. So that's problem suffering. They don't know kind of how to get out of it, so they try all sorts of different things which actually just contribute to the problem, such as organising your life around anxiety, making decisions based on fear, avoiding stuff. All of that stuff makes anxiety, it perpetuates it, makes it stronger, and it makes it last longer. And they don't know how, they just don't know what the tools are that are necessary to get out of anxiety. And in fairness, that's why they seek out a psychologist or a therapist of some sort to teach those tools so they can do it. So I think that lack of knowledge is one of the first reasons that people stay in problem suffering as opposed to problem solving. But even when that knowledge is available, I think there's a feeling that, will it work? Can I do it? Is it something that I can get a hold of and it will change my life? And if that lack of kind of belief in the process of progress persists, then what happens is it detracts from the intention, and it detracts from the emotional motivation to do something. So here's the truth of it. There are lots and lots of people who struggle with anxiety and depression. A good proportion, well, a proportion will seek out treatment, say from a therapist or a counsellor, and they'll get relief, and a proportion will get, cured in a sense. They'll get better. They won't be struggling with these problems anymore. Another proportion will start some form of therapy and then drop out. Another proportion, possibly a larger proportion, won't seek any help at all, and they'll just sort of settle into problem suffering. Now, my position is this. If you watch my videos, you'll know that it's not my idea, but it's kind of the idea that I promote, is that you create the story, you create the life you experience. You are the master of your destiny to a large degree, certainly your internal destiny. And the stories that you create about yourself, and the actions that you do, the thoughts that you generate, and the practices that you engage in create the story that you that you live your life, your destiny. And if you get stuck in the story of there's nothing I can do, I don't know how to do it, it's going to be too hard, it won't work, if that's the story that you're inhabiting, then you're not going to get anything different really, are you? Because you're not going to be doing anything substantially different. It's a bit like, I once met someone who said to me, yes, I'm going to university. I said, oh, well, how will that be like? Do you think, do you enjoy it? And they said, I think it'll be like a 3-year prison sentence. And so they went to university, they thought it would be a 3-year prison sentence, they last 6 weeks, because they're going with the presumption that it's going to be a prison sentence, and so why would you stay in prison if you don't have to stay? They left after 6 weeks and never went back to university. So here's the kind of idea that I want to promote for you. You create the experience that you experience, so you're the master of your destiny, the kind of psychological life that you have. And you might think that it's difficult to recover from anxiety or depression, but nevertheless it's possible because many hundreds of thousands of people do it every year. So instead of locking into the idea that nothing can help, you don't know what to do, and staying in problem suffering, let's become actively problem solving. So instead of saying, I'm anxious and frightened, I can't do anything, I can't do this or I can't do that, ask yourself this question, well, what can I do differently? What can I do today? What can I do that's progressive today? Progressive this morning, progressive this afternoon. What can I do that will make things better, that will make things different? And look for information, look for opportunities to become problem solving. And you'll find that if you do this even just a little bit, that you'll go from problem suffering to problem solving. You'll see that many of the problems that you struggle with, they're chimeras, they're fantasies, they're the imagination that your brain creates. They're things which disappear once you push them. They've got a quality of being, like they feel like they're intense and dense, but actually they're not. They're just interpretations, impressions, they're just thoughts, they're just emotions. And as we always say in cognitive behavior therapy, feelings are not facts. They feel strong and it makes you want to do things, but they're not facts. So ask yourself, what can I do today? How can I solve this problem today? Now, if you do what the emotions always tell you to do, then you're going to always be reinforcing the emotions. So let me just unpack this a little bit. Every emotion has a kind of an action associated with it. And so the emotion of fear, because we can talk about that, makes you want to run away and avoid. Now, if you do what the emotion of fear tells you to do, you're going to find that you're reinforcing the emotion of fear, and that's going to mean that something which is reinforced comes back more and more frequently. And so simply by accepting the validity of this experience, you're reinforcing it and you're making your anxiety worse, or at the very least you're perpetuating it. And so what can I do different? To move to problem solving mode instead of problem suffering? Well, the one thing that's really important, and you could do this at any point, any time, any day, is to ask yourself this question: is my emotion justified? Now, the emotion for anxiety is almost always fear, okay? Is my emotion justified in this situation? And I've spoken to people who had panic attacks in bed. Is the emotion of fear justified in bed? Is the emotion of fear justified as a passenger in a car? Is the emotion of fear justified, walking to the shops? Is the emotion of fear justified in almost any walk of modern life? And I would say that it's not, actually. The emotion of fear is not justified. Okay, now, if we accept that it's justified and then we avoid stuff, or we run away, or we don't do stuff, basically we make decisions based on fear, then what's going to happen is we're going to reinforce the fear. And that means the anxiety is going to perpetuate. Well, why will the anxiety perpetuate? Because anxiety is the feeling of fear without a threat. Anxiety is your brain overestimating the likelihood of threat. And if you give in to the emotion, then your brain is going to go, yeah, I was right, this is frightening. I was right, you do need to be frightened in bed. You do need to be frightened going to the shops. And so when we reinforce the emotion, we're telling your brain that its decision to give you anxiety is valid, but it's not valid. Your brain's decision to give you anxiety is just the result of the amount of times you have given in to the emotion of fear instead of challenging it. So, form a strong intention to actually be anxiety free. If you form a strong intention and if you do the practices, then you can be anxiety free because you create your reality. Right now you're putting effort into creating the reality of anxiety, but let's put some effort into creating a different reality. That's straightforward. You could not do a university degree or climb a mountain or run a marathon or do anything without an intention and without the persistence to carry through. Wow, it's difficult. I don't think I can do it, but you can do it. Okay? Form a strong intention to be anxiety free, assuming you want to be anxiety free. That is the first step of getting out of problem suffering and into problem solving. And the second step is to recognize that what you do, practically do on a day-to-day basis, either reinforces anxiety or it extinguishes it. So it makes it more likely or makes it less likely. And one of the key things that you can do to continue to make it less likely is to ask yourself this question: do I need to be anxious now? Do I need to feel fear in this context? And if you don't need to feel fear in this context, well then challenge it. I mean, fair enough, look, if someone's pointing a gun at you, you probably should feel frightened, right? If you're at the top of a tall building, on a ledge, fair dues, you should feel frightened. But if you're in bed, walking in the streets, just doing the mundane things that everyone does, fear is a misinterpretation. It's a mistake your brain is making, and therefore you don't need to feel fearful. And therefore you don't need to accept the validity of the emotion. The emotion's a mistake, and therefore you do the opposite of what the emotion wants you to do. You do not avoid. You do not run away. You go forward. You challenge the feeling. There's an old book which is classic, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. Susan Jeffers' book. It's true. Feel the fear, yeah, but do it anyway. Never make a decision based on fear if the fear is illegitimate, right? Never make a decision based on fear, because it will only ever take you in the wrong direction. And that direction is away from your intention to be anxiety free. I hope you find this interesting, because it's one of the fundamentals of the challenge of anxiety. Anxiety is something which just spoils your experience, but is completely unnecessary. There is absolutely no reason in the world why you need to feel anxious. But if your brain's giving you anxiety, you need to get the message across to your brain that you don't want it. And this would be a great first step. So thanks for taking the time to watch and listen, and I hope you tune in, join, like and subscribe, etc.